Stop me, 'cause I'm having a good time, having a good time. I'm a shooting star leaping through the sky like a tiger, defying the laws of gravity. I'm a racing...
Hello and welcome to another video on Warhammer Underworlds Shadespire. So with this series of videos, I've just opened up the Chosen Axes expansion set for Shadespire. In earlier videos, we looked at the Shadespire specific cards. Now we're going to look at the generic cards. These are the cards that are going to affect your meta, even if you're not playing against Fire Slayers, and it's also going to affect your deck. Now a lot of people ask, hey, should I buy this? Is this really going to affect my game? The answer is yes, absolutely. Even before I look at any of these cards, just knowing about what I do about the other expansion sets, you want to buy all of them. Each one that I've seen has so fundamentally changed the game and what's available that in order to stay competitive, you are going to need to get your hands on each expansion. But that being said, the purpose of this is to get my first impressions at literally the first time I look at these cards. I have not seen these cards prior to this very recording. So we will see exactly what comes up the first time I look at these cards and how they will affect the meta going forward. So our first card is Unbroken Wall. There's my girl Angarad Brightshield as the cover girl for this, and of course she is my favorite character. Score this in an end phase if all surviving friendly fighters, at least 3, are in a single group with each friendly fighter adjacent to another friendly fighter. Okay, so this is during an end phase. It's 1 glory point. It's got Stormcast on the picture, and that's probably who you should use it with. Major downside is it requires at least 3. For a Stormcast build that is based around picking a single spot and sitting on it, Stormcasts get very difficult to kill when they're together. So I'm definitely seeing this as a strong option for them. The biggest problem that you're going to face in using this with any other faction is going to be because there's a lot of them. It's going to be difficult to get them all in the same place and still accomplish all of your other objectives. This I'm seeing as situationally useful for a very specific build and strategy. I like it as a primary Stormcast player, and I've had a lot of success with a deck built around this. I'll do another video on that specific deck later on. But so far, I like this one. Trapped. And we have, for our art, a very scared-looking Skaven, as if there's any other kind of Skaven. Score this immediately. Alright, that's always good. If an enemy fighter takes damage from a friendly fighter's attack action because they cannot be driven back. If an enemy fighter... Okay, so if you corner somebody, you smack them, and they take damage from the attack because they can't be driven back. Okay, so there are lots of moving parts here, and for all those moving parts, you get 1 glory point. Keep in mind the situations in which that's going to happen. You're going to have somebody in a corner spot with somebody next to them, hitting them in such a way that there is no possible space they could be moved back to. And again, that's only happening on a tie. If you would have hit anyway, this is not going to go off because of this text right here, because they cannot be driven back. So hilariously, I feel like the trapped card is a trap. I would not bother with this. Total Annihilation. Whoa, okay. So this is the biggest number of glory points from a single card that we have seen yet. This is, count them, 7. They're struggling to get that many coins on the card. Wow. Okay, so score this in the first or second end phase, i.e. not the third end phase, if all enemy fighters have been taken out of action. As opposed to Khorne's Champion, which fires off in the third end phase, or Annihilation, which also fires off in the third end phase. Okay, so sure, you're going to get excited seeing 7 glory points on one card, but don't get too excited, because let's be real here. If you manage to table your opponent in the first or second turn, you've probably won anyway. I struggle to think of any possible deck build that can come back from being tabled in turn 2. Now, if somebody does manage to pull this off, I will be amazed. If somebody manages to pull this off and Annihilation or Khorne's Champion, I will declare that person King of Shadespire. That would be amazing. I don't think it will ever happen in serious play, though. I don't know. Maybe if you frequently play a lot of novice players, you might pull this off. But man, you're probably kind of a dick. Okay. Tactical Genius 1 through 3. Okay, score this in an end phase if you hold objectives 1, 2, and 3. Okay, well, you got... This seems to be the natural evolution from the hold objective cards and the tactical supremacy cards. Again, not a lot of love for objectives 4 and 5 here, but I don't know. This seems really difficult to pull off, especially with a lot of factions suffering from movement problems, or being very weak. Like, those that do manage to have enough movement to possibly pull this off, they're often very weak if unsupported. Keep in mind, I haven't yet looked at the Skaven stuff. I could see Khorne Bloodmound maybe pulling this off. I don't know. This looks very difficult to do, especially keep in mind that in a deck you're doing this, you probably already got all 5 of the hold objective cards. I don't know. I'll be interested to see what people do with this, but it's definitely not something I'm immediately going to go for. Precise use of force. Okay. Score this immediately if a friendly fighter makes a successful attack action that deals exactly enough damage to take their target out of action. Okay, so this is immediate use. I like it. Dealing exactly enough to take somebody out is not super difficult to do, especially because a lot of strategies are built around organizing situations in which you can one-shot somebody. This is another score immediately card. If you have a very combat-focused deck, I'm thinking, Khorne Bloodbound, Iron Jaws, even Stormcast, possibly even some builds with Sepulchral Guard if you're playing them very offensively. This could be a strong choice. Perfect planning. Score this in an end phase if none of your fighters made a move action in the preceding action phase. Okay, this is interesting because this is one of those objectives that's really easy to pull off. And I always like to have 1 or 2 of those in my opening hand. However, in your opening hand, during that turn, you're almost always going to move somebody. Ideally, I would want this card to show up in turns 2 or 3. But by then, I'm probably looking to acquire some meatier objective cards who are going to get me more glory. If you have a highly defensive-oriented deck, again, I'm thinking Stormcast, and looky there, there's a Stormcast, there's old Severin, douche bro himself. on the art. This could be pretty possible. I don't know. This strikes me as something that's going to require very specific strategy to accomplish and to work around. And this is also something that can be very easy for your opponent to mess up. This is, in its nature, a game of actions and reactions. You're going to want to respond to what your opponent does, and you're going to want to force them to make choices. This is forcing you to make a choice. I don't like being in a situation where I have to do a specific thing, but then that's really all objective cards. I don't know. Interestingly, this makes no minimum. So you could have just one guy on the table. We've all had situations where we just have one guy left, and they're standing still and just doing nothing but 4 attacks in that third round. This could be really great. No remorse. Score this immediately if one of your fighters takes an enemy fighter out of action with a damage characteristic greater than the target's wounds characteristic. Okay, that is... Given the amount of chaff characters in this game, that's not too difficult. You're looking at Sepulchral Guard Petitioners, who only have 2 hit points. Arnulf and Targor only have 2. Most of the Skaven are very low in hit points. It's pretty easy to get an attack that's going to be over that threshold. Again, another combat-focused, really great choice. You know, I could see both of these being in the same deck, and just having them as easy to pull off objectives that are based around your core idea, if your core idea is killing the other guy. And for a lot of decks, you're going to be doing that anyway. Making a statement. Score this in an invase if you hold all objectives, at least one, in your opponent's territory. Okay, I like this a lot, just off the cuff. 3 glory points, which is great. It's any end phase, not the third one. And while this may be difficult to pull off if you don't have a lot of fast movers in your build, there has been a big move in the meta lately to try to force as many objectives as you can into your enemy's territory, leaving only 2 or maybe even 1 objective in your own territory. Considering with an aggressive build, you're going to want to be in your opponent's territory anyway. This is a strong choice. There are several objective cards that reward you for holding an objective, any objective, in enemy territory. This also doesn't have any numbers attached to it, so it doesn't need to be a specific objective. Given that I have a Stormcast deck, which I've mentioned again, that is based around this sort of idea, this is a very strong card. Little difficult to pull off, especially if you're not much of a fast mover, but this can be a game winner. Honest Opponent. Score this in an end phase if you played no ploy cards in the preceding action phase. Okay, so yeah, this is easy to pull off, but if you have an entire action phase in which you play no ploys, you didn't build your ploys right. Your deck has a problem. I doubt there's ever going to be a build that is going to synergize well with not playing ploys. Ploys are a big part of this game. This might be good for newer players who are just getting their feet wet. But again, if you pull this off, it's because you did something else wrong. Dauntless. Score this in end phase if your fighters are outnumbered by at least 3 to 1. Okay, so again, we've got another one with a Stormcast in the art, and that's probably who you should use it for. This would also be very good at 2 glory points and being available in any end phase. Oh, that's an Angerad Bright Shield quote. 3 against 1, that's very nearly a fair fight. That's my girl! Okay. Yeah, I can definitely see this as very useful, especially if you have a build that's focused on pumping up a single character, maybe a Garrett Gore build, Garrett Gorebeard, Khorne's Champion style deck, or a basic Stormcast deck, or a Fireslayer deck built around making Fuel Grimnir the guy. I have a Khorne's Champion deck build that I would love to put this card in, because if all goes well, I'm probably only going to have Garrick by the end of the game. That being said, that kind of makes this a third phase card, but it's not. So, that one's interesting. Assassinate. Okay, sorry, I'm getting a little bit out of focus here. 1 second. Here we go. Score this in an end phase if your warband took an enemy leader out of action in the preceding action phase. Okay. There's already a lot of cards that say kill the boss. That's going to synergize well. The only problem is sometimes bosses are hard to kill. If you're looking at, if you're playing against orcs, Gurzag is famously hard to kill. From what I've seen of the Fire Slayers, Fuel Grimnir is also going to be famously hard to kill. But all that being said, at this point there's so much synergy around an assassination type strategy. This is just icing on that particular cake. I really like it. Okay, so that is going to be all of the universal objective cards that come in the Chosen Axes expansion set. Some really good options here. I think the takeaway from this is that now that we've got a lot of the general, very standard, staple objective cards that you need for the game, they're breaking into a lot of very specific territory, which in a game that's built around defining your own win conditions, this is exactly what you need. So this is a great development for Warhammer Underworlds as a game going forward. I'm really looking forward to seeing the objective cards that come in the Spikeclaw Swarm expansion, which I also have here, and also the other universal cards, the ploys and upgrades. And we will investigate those in our next video. So for now, thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you in the next video.